Let's begin today's science lesson by reviewing what we know about the moon so far. What is the shape of the moon? Well, the moon we know is shaped like a ball, although its appearance does change in the sky from day to day. We'll be talking about that later. Is the moon bigger or smaller than Earth? Well, the moon is smaller than Earth. And what about, is the moon bigger or smaller than the sun? The moon is much smaller than the sun. It does look the same size as the sun in the sky, though, because it is so much closer to Earth than the sun is. When can the moon be seen? Well, unlike the sun, the moon can be seen both at night and during the day. What do you remember about the sun and the moon, what they have in common? Well, like the sun, the moon rises and sets and changes position in the sky. The sun and the moon both appear to move across the sky because the earth is constantly moving. So that's what we have learned so far about the moon. Today, we are going to talk about this word, environment. Let me adjust my screen a little bit. There we go, so there's not so much glare. Okay, we're going to talk about the word environment. Our environment is made up of the conditions around us. So we're going to learn about the moon's environment and how it is different from the Earth. Let's begin by talking about what we need to survive. What do we need to survive? Well, all living things need food, water, and air. And we have learned that animals need air and food and water just like we do. And when we studied plants, we talked about how plants need sunlight and water and other things to grow as well. What do you think would happen if the water and air suddenly disappeared from the earth? Could we keep on living? Well, if the water and air suddenly disappeared, well, we can't breathe without air, right? We cannot breathe without air, and we would starve without food, and we couldn't survive without water either. So we would die, all the humans would die, and then the animals, well, they need these things too, so they would die. And even plants, we've learned that they can't survive without water or air either. So this is what it would look like. We can't survive in those conditions. What do you think about the moon? Do you think there are people and animals and plants living on the moon? Well, you probably already know that nothing lives on the moon. So today we're going to learn about why that is. Okay, so we're going to look at pictures of the Earth and the moon to learn more about how they are different from each other. Here is a picture of the Earth taken from space. What colors do you see in this picture? Okay, you see blues, probably some browns, some swirls of white. You see green. What do you think the blue areas are? The blue is the water on the earth, and earth is made mostly of water. So all of that water, that is our oceans, our large lakes, the seas. What do you think the brown areas are? The brown areas are the land that is not covered by the ocean. And then the green as well. The green is the land. What do you think those swirls of white are? Those swirls of white are clouds. Okay, let's look at some pictures of some different environments on Earth. Here's a tropical jungle. We see lots of life there. We see life in the plants. We know there's animals that live in the jungle. Here's another environment. Here's the ocean. What kinds of living things do you see in this picture? Fish and turtles, right. Here's a picture of a forest animal. Got a little deer there. What other things in this picture are alive? Well, the tree and the plants. Here's another picture of a different kind of environment. This is up in the Arctic. What do you see that is a living creature in this picture? We see the polar bear up there on the iceberg. What do you see in this picture that's living? Definitely the children. What about the grass and the trees? All of those are living things. So what do these pictures tell you about Earth? Earth's environment, that is everything surrounding us, can support life. Things can live on Earth because we have air, we have sunlight, we have food, we have water. We have all those things that are needed to support life. So now I want you to take activity sheet 6, part A. You will need blue, green, brown, and white crayons. And I want you to color the earth based off of the pictures you have just seen. So pause this video while you do that. All right, at this point you have colored your earth. It probably looks something like this right here. Now, let's look at the earth and the moon side by side. What kind of colors do we see in the moon? Okay, it looks like a mottled kind of blackish gray. What other things do you see on the moon? You might see craters, which are round dents or holes that cover the surface of the moon. They're all over the moon. Some of the craters are large and some are very small. Do you see any blue on the moon? Nope, and that means there's no what? There's no water. Do you see any swirls of white? No, which means there's no clouds. And clouds are tiny droplets of water. So since there's no blue on the moon, which means there's no water, there can be no clouds. So that means there's no rain on the moon. What does that tell you about the moon? Well, what needs water to survive? Animals and plants and us, which we are a type of animal. So, since there's no water on the moon, can there be any life on the moon? Probably not. Let's take a closer look at the moon's environment. Check this out. Isn't that a beautiful picture? You can see the Earth in the distance, and look at the footprints on the moon. Where did those footprints come from? They came from astronauts, right? And those astronauts, boy, they were on the moon a long time ago. Do you know why their footprints are still there? Because there's no wind on the moon. Right. Earth kind of has like a clear bubble around it, and we call that our atmosphere. Can you say atmosphere? That bubble that's around the Earth traps the air in the Earth so we can breathe, and it also creates wind. We've got wind and weather on the Earth. Now, there is no bubble of air around the moon, so that means there is no wind. So that is why the footprints of the astronauts are still there. There's no wind to blow the footprints away. How would you describe the moon? How would you describe the moon? Okay, it looks rocky and dusty. There's some hills, there's some craters. See, there's a crater right there. But mostly it looks pretty drab and pretty flat. And there doesn't seem to be any water. Remember, we thought there was no water because there was no blue, and there's definitely not water there. Do you see any animals or plants in this picture? No, there are no animals or plants because there is no water. Look at this astronaut. What is he wearing? He's wearing something that kind of looks like a snowsuit. That's a spacesuit. Why do you think he has to wear that spacesuit? Right, there's no air on the moon because there is no atmosphere. Remember that clear bubble I just talked about that's around the Earth? It has no atmosphere, so there's no air on the moon. So the astronauts need to wear their suits to breathe. And also, the temperature on the moon, it gets really super hot during the day and really super cold at night. So the suits protect the astronauts from both the heat and the cold. Okay, so are the conditions on the moon the same or different than the conditions on the Earth? Are their environments the same or different? They are very different. Earth has water, air, and living things. The moon has no air, seems to have no water, and therefore no living things. So now I want you to take activity sheet part B, and I want you to color in the moon based off the pictures we have seen. All right.